Becca. I'm 31 years old. I was born here in the United States, in Houston actually. My family is from Taiwan, so we're Chinese, but I've spent my whole life here in America. I am a teacher. I teach first grade at a public school. And what else?
What is oppression to you?
I guess we have to realize that oppression means any majority group that is marginalizing or trying to silence or disempower a minority group, whether that group be based on sexual preference or ethnicity or culture or even social and economic status.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I view oppression.
Okay. And how have you come to get that view?
I mean, sadly enough, I guess I've experienced a lot of that myself growing up. I'll tell you lots of stories.
Okay. Is there a particular story that you think of?
I think when I was really young, I was so innocent. I lived in a bubble. I thought everyone was the same, and everyone loves one another, and we're all equals. And I think it wasn't until second grade I remember learning about slavery and being shocked, and I just couldn't believe something like that had taken place in history. And even though it affected me emotionally, I still felt like, oh, well, that's still kind of outside of me. That doesn't really affect me on a day-to-day basis. And I think it wasn't until fifth grade, I used to struggle a lot with my weight, and so I was a little bit overweight. And I remember a student calling me fat, and she had passed around a note, sending it to everybody in the classroom. And it finally made it all the way around the room until I got the note saying that, oh, I had the fattest thighs or whatever. And I remember I was humiliated, and that was the first time that I finally felt like, wow, we're not all the same, we're not all equal. So I had experienced a lot of bullying related to that. And then it wasn't until middle school that I started to realize that there were a lot of racist people out there. In middle school, I was in 7th grade, and I was kind of shy and kind of nerdy, I guess. And I just remember students of another race pushing me down the stairs, and they would say ching chong, things like that. So I think that was the first time that I really realized that there was just a lot of racism out there, and where I had thought this whole world was perfect, and I come from this little bubble. I think my bubble finally broke at that point. I was probably 12.
12.
And I just remember there was teachers around too. They had witnessed all these events, and they didn't do anything, and that really bothered me. And I remember having to approach a teacher and say, did you see this person just bullied me? They pushed me down the stairs, they did this and that. And the teacher pretty much was like, get over it, sorry. And didn't deal with it. There was no consequences for these people. This happened more than once. There was also students that would come by and just purposely knock down my binder, and my books and papers would go everywhere on the floor. And that was also in front of other teachers, and nothing was ever done. I mean, I was getting physically hurt, and nobody was doing anything about it. So it made me just question. It made me feel really insecure about myself. That was around the time that I started to get really insecure about who I was, the way I looked, the color of my skin. And I became more aware that I looked different than a lot of people in my school, and it hurt. And I think I remember that 7th grade year, I felt like I was going through depression, because this happened a lot. And I could tell you so many other similar stories, the way I was treated. And I just remember going home and locking myself in my bedroom. I didn't want to come out. And that's also when I gained a lot of weight, because all I was doing was eating, to hide my feelings. And I would do nothing but just watch TV and eat. I just felt so unmotivated. I didn't want to come out. I didn't want to socialize. I just felt like at that time something wasn't right. The world was so unfair and unjust, and I didn't know why, and I didn't know how I could stop it. Didn't know what I could do. Well, the insecurities definitely stayed with me. The sense of not feeling like I belong anywhere definitely affected me as I went on to high school, even college. There was just a lot of confusion. And I guess a lot of sadness, and a lot of it I've, tucked away, I've hidden, because I didn't really know who to talk to about these things. And I tried to talk to my parents.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't understand. They would tell me, oh, you're just imagining things. Or I talked to some of my friends, and they would say, oh no, you're just, that's not true, that's not what's going on. Everyone loves you, and you have friends, you're fine. But I feel like inside I wasn't fine, I wasn't okay, and I didn't know how to handle all these things that were happening. I just wanted someone to look at me and say, you know what, you're right. I'm sorry that happened to you, you're right. Someone was racist, or someone, didn't like you because you were Chinese, or something. It's better than being ignored and just acting like everything was okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand it was people's intentions, they were trying to make me feel better. But I think it would have helped a lot more if someone had just said, I believe you, you're right. I guess maybe not until I got to high school and I continued to experience things like this that I finally had to give it a name and admit to myself, this is racism. Before I just thought maybe it's just a mean kid, maybe it's just a bully.
Mm-hmm.
But then I finally realized, no, this is racism.
How did that happen? How did you get that realization?
That's a good question. I don't know. I guess after experiencing this with other races too, I know I told you a little bit about my theater experience with being told by theater teachers that because I wasn't white, that's why they couldn't cast me, because I didn't look the part of somebody. Everyone else in the play was white, so you don't fit in, sorry. Oh, but you're a great actress, is what I was told. So I had a lot of that to deal with. So I feel like after experiencing even more of these negative things with people of all different races, I don't know, maybe that's how I came to the realization. Maybe it was just happening too often, too much. It finally just hit me. This is really sad, but I remember just sitting in my bathtub crying for hours because I felt like maybe that was the day that I realized. Sorry, it's hard to talk about. Made some friends with a group of students that were in one of my classes, and we're all so different. They were from different cultural backgrounds than me. There was a girl who was Iranian, and there was a couple white kids, and someone else from another Middle Eastern country. And I felt like we were so close that we were able to talk about these things. So it came up a little bit with them, where they shared their experiences also. So maybe that was an outlet for me to be able to talk to other people who have experienced some of these things. And we were all kind of, I don't know the word, the misfits. I guess we all felt like we didn't fit in anywhere or any group. So maybe that's why we became so closely knit together. These are some of my best friends from high school, and I'm still friends with them.
So you found some other people who could say, yeah, I've been through something like that, and this is really happening, which you hadn't had before. You're not right. So what effect did that have to finally have some people who could say, yeah, this is really happening?
Well, it was great to have someone to talk to and for them to validate what I've been saying this whole time or trying to say. Just tell me that they agreed and that they had similar things happen, and that they felt the same way, and they felt the same insecurities as me. I guess it was the beginning of a healing process to be able to talk about it finally.
Yeah, and I was kind of wondering then, like, when you're finally able to put this word to it, call it racism, call it oppression, what effect do you think that had on you at that point, or later?
well, I'm glad I found those friends, because if I didn't, I don't know where I'd be right now. Still confused, not sure what's going on, still feeling like I don't belong, I guess. I guess it made me feel better to know that there was other people going through the same things as me. That I wasn't the only one, and I wasn't struggling alone. I know I had support, even though I may not have had that at home with my family or with anybody else, my other classmates. Because, you know, sometimes, I hate saying this, but even now, I mean, when I try to tell my parents about these experiences, it's like they just brush it off.
So your family still doesn't quite accept what's happened?
And maybe they've never experienced it, because my parents only spend time with other Asians, their close family friends, the same culture, same background, they do the same things, they speak the same language. Even my brother went to a different high school than me, so after I graduated and went to college, my family moved to another neighborhood, and he went to a school that had, I don't even know the numbers, like 50% Asian, so he only had Asian friends. And I guess I always felt like he fit in, he was really popular. I was kind of the opposite. Totally different high school experience. So even sometimes when I talk to him about it, I think as much as he wants to try to understand, he can't. You know, a lot of the Asian cultures, especially the Chinese culture, you're not really supposed to talk about your feelings. You're not supposed to express yourself. So, because it's, you know, viewed as weakness, so when I do express myself, I'm usually told, oh, your feelings don't matter. Or don't worry so much about how you feel. You're too emotional. You're too sensitive. I've always been told that by my family, which I guess caused a lot of that invalidation feeling, you know? Like, you may not understand these experiences, but please at least see that I'm hurting and that this has happened to me, and believe it. Believe that I'm hurting from it. Well, I guess when I finally realized I'm not the only one dealing with this, there are other people out there. I guess maybe unconsciously I was looking for other people like me to fight against depression, to take a stand. Even recently, really recently, I just made a friend, and we were at a restaurant and we were kind of being ignored by the waiter, and she had said something about, oh, it's because of our race. And usually you don't hear that from people. But, so I was really surprised, and I was like, that's right. And she was like, yeah, that's racist. And I was like, yeah. I mean, just the fact that someone acknowledged that race could be a factor in the situation, that was huge for me. So I knew we would connect, I guess, because I've gone through so many years of oppression, and all of it's just kind of inside, just being built up, and to the point where I don't know what else to do but to talk about it, to find other people to talk to about it, to do something about it. I feel like I'm at the point where if I don't talk about it, I'm never going to be healed from all the pain that I've experienced in the past. So maybe I was just at my breaking point of I don't know what else to do. Like, I'm filled up to here with all this hurt and all this pain, and I need to speak about it. And maybe even if nothing more than just one person listening, and maybe just that one person being changed by my story, you know?
So somehow you knew you had to talk about it to help heal. And somehow you've also known, or not known, but so you're hoping that by telling your story, by having someone else hear it, it might make a difference for them too. In what way are you hoping it makes a difference for them?
Maybe it would affect someone in the way they see things, or the way they think, or maybe an interaction they might have with someone. Maybe it would change the jokes that they make, or things that they would stand up for, or maybe times where they need to stay quiet. I know that I've talked a lot with my students here and there whenever we've had time, or when these issues have come up. Because the kids that I teach are like 6 and 7. They're really young, most of them don't really even realize that they're different than anybody else. And that's how I was, and I remember being like that, being really naive up until that point. But I try my best to educate them. Because soon stuff does come up. Kids are pointing out the way they look, or maybe their accents, or the way they talk, the way their parents are dressed, or something. It comes out. So I feel like that's my responsibility as a teacher, is to educate them. Every year I head up a committee, and we start, we hold an annual culture fair. And I feel like that's one way that I can affect my students, and to make them realize and make them aware that there are other cultures out there, to appreciate each other, to appreciate these cultures.
Mm-hmm. You think you might see some of them doing that would tell you that they'd gotten one of your messages?
Well, something actually happened yesterday.
Okay.
I could share with you. One of my students was making fun of a student with a disability that was walking down the hall. He was just laughing really loudly and pointing. And I was telling everyone, oh, look at him, ha ha ha. And all my other students, before I could do anything or say anything, ran over, and they were like, don't do that, that's not nice, you're being very disrespectful, and it's not his fault, he was born like that, and we have to love him, and you should get to know him. And I couldn't believe this was coming out of the mouths of 6-year-olds. And then I thought back to a couple weeks ago. We had a school-wide event, and it was like an Olympic theme event. We decorated the halls, we dressed up in costumes, but I had decorated my wall with the Paralympics, and I wanted to feature a bunch of Paralympians. And so we had looked at the pictures, we discussed, we had gone through all these examples, and I think my kids are finally aware that there are people out there and that are different than them, and that they should be respectful and understand that, if you're born a certain way, it doesn't mean anything, doesn't mean you're not capable of doing anything. And look at these amazing, role models. So some of my kids brought that up as an example to this little boy that was
How do
lying.
you feel when you see them doing these things? When they're telling someone don't be a bully, or when they're reaching out to the person who would have been considered different?
Yeah. I feel really touched, because I know that, from my experience, nobody helped to educate me on that. No one stood up for me. So I feel like in some way I'm standing up for these kids, and I'm also teaching others to stand up for them. So I feel good knowing that I may have affected somebody even at a young age. Maybe even in ways they don't remember. They're not going to grow up and say, oh, well, I know that Miss Wang taught me this when I was in first grade, but somehow that's instilled in them. I guess I'm reacting in the way that I wish teachers had reacted. I wish they had stepped in to help me. So I guess I'm trying to do what they did for me.
Yeah, you're trying to be the teacher you wish you had.
Exactly.
Yeah. I guess, just at the time, we probably have to wind down here, but how does it feel to know that you're becoming the teacher you wish you'd had?
Makes me feel powerful to know that I can do something for somebody. And I guess even honestly, I'm doing it for myself too. It's part of my healing.
Did you always know you would become this person?
No, I don't think I knew, but from those experiences when I was really young, I knew that I was not going to put up with this my whole life. I guess I got to that point where I have to do something, I have to fight back. I can't let the world continue to be like this. And I didn't want my kids to go through what I've been through, and all that hurt and all that pain. And so many of my students are already going through so much with their family situations, their environment. I don't know. I wanted to teach them what the real world was like, I guess. I don't want them to be so naive like me, thinking everything's perfect, everybody's your friend, we're all the same, racism is dead, because it's definitely not.